but there's also all those ones within the interference and the darkness that you deal with. But again, that's any community.
Yeah.
And right now we're really hyper focused on specifically either transgender folks within the LGBTQ community, but also like I see it as this split. And that split is people either transition from love or they transition from hate. And the way that I kind of see both those is I transition out of love for myself. Because I loved myself is actually why I transitioned, because I wanted to be more comfortable and I already loved who I was inside. I already thought I was whole and I didn't need anything outside of me.
Can I be a Karen right now and say, but you're never going to be a biological male? What would you say to me if I was a Karen and I was sitting here right now and she stopped you in the middle of this episode and said that to you? What would your response be? Today's guest is Hayden Tricker, a high-performance coach, biohacker, and embodiment strategist helping souls reclaim their vitality, truth, and sovereign path. He's also my fiancé, and he's also transgender. But today, we're not here to debate identity. We're here to challenge something deeper. What role do queer and trans beings play in the evolution of humanity? We're unpacking queerness, ascension, and the spiritual codes carried by the LGBTQ+ beings. Are they here as a distortion, or are they the blueprint of the new earth? This is the conversation your polarity coach is too inexperienced to have. Let's go there. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Spiritual Debate Podcast. I'm V, and today I have the most special guest that I could ever have in the whole wide world. But this is a debate, so we're going to get very serious later. Hayden Tricker, my beloved, I'm so happy to have you here today, and I honestly don't think that I could possibly do this podcast without you, without your presence, and without you being the first guest, really, like my first guest in the Spiritual Debate Podcast. So, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to start with a little bit of your origin story, because even though this isn't an interview, we are having a conversation about your identity and my identity, but in a completely different space and journey than yours. So, I want to know, for everybody listening, when did you know you were gay? What was your coming out story like? Then you had your spiritual awakening, and then you came out as trans. So kind of like walk us through that journey as easily as you can.
I was gonna say how much time we got.
And go. We have 45 minutes.
I guess I'll kind of start where it all began. When I was really little, I was kind of new and also was told that I was more of like a tomboy girl. So I was born female and I always had a masculine presence about me. I had an older brother that everything I wanted to do was pretty much be him, but also like beat him in all sports, all things that I just wanted to be better. And I think from there, at, again, such a young age, and this is a huge conversation around kids and identity and what did like at that age, what do you know about yourself? And all I knew is I like to play sports. I like to play with Lego and dinky cars and all the more masculine or boy things. I always wanted to wear men's clothes, always a desire that I had, and accessories. I always loved to wear watches and hats. And that was just something about me that made me feel comfortable and confident in myself at that age. Then going into high school, I feel like for everyone is a really hard time because you just want to fit in. So you start to adapt to different things that maybe aren't your personality or actually you is like your true self. So I became a little bit more hyper feminine because that's what I learned for what would get attention or what would like please others. And then after that, it was really when I moved away from my small town. And funny enough, we are from the same area in Ontario.
Did you get that? We're from the same area in Ontario, Canada. That is crazy. And we never met. Okay. Yes. Okay.
So
Continue.
it was like
Sorry.
once I actually moved out of that small town and allowed my expression to actually like find who was Rachel at that
Mhm.
time. And that was my previous name. That was what I was born as. And it just gave me so much freedom that it was like one little thing like unlocked in me that I was like, I get to go shopping and buy whatever I want to. I get to go into my college classes and show and be whoever like that expression that I wanted to be instead of everyone that known me as.
Mhm.
And that was like this that first kind of layer of this feels good. I don't know what that is, but that's just it felt yeah, great at that time. And in that shift as well, I started to understand feelings. I didn't know what love was. I mean, does anyone kind of also at that age between high school
Mm.
and college, you're kind of seeing people, you're understanding your own sexuality and desires.
Yeah.
And I never really felt butterflies before. As funny as that is, like people always kind of talk about it, but never with men had I had that feeling when you're texting them, and you're like flirting, and you say something, you have to like throw your phone because you're just like all giddy and just like, what is that feeling inside? I never had that until I started messaging this one girl. And had to ask some of my really close, like high school friends to be like, what is the feeling you get with your boyfriend? Because like I don't get this with my boyfriend, and like I get this with this other like random girl that I worked with, and that's how I started trying to like figure out that oh, there is some type of attraction to women,
Yeah.
and then it went the opposite that I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to suppress that part of myself to be like, I just want to be straight like everyone else. I just want to fit
Mhm.
in like everyone else. I don't want to be different at that time. And I tried really hard to continue to just see, like everyone always says, like you either haven't met the right guy yet or haven't had the right
Mm.
experience or those those things that it just wasn't true for me until I actually embraced that part of me and started seeing a woman. And that was the first time was in college.
Mm.
And for those next few years, that felt like an inner like safety, but it still felt like something was missing. I knew it was better than I ever have felt inside within love, relationship, self-expression, and then also that love for myself and confidence. But there was still the other layer that I didn't understand. I didn't know what it was. And that's also when I met you.
Was just thinking that was like one of the first things I said to you when we like just started to unpack our relationship. I was like, I just feel like there's so much more to you that you haven't come
Mm.
into. And it's so beautiful where you take this story because I well, I love this part because I'm in it.
Do we share how we actually
That's gonna be my story because
met?
I didn't have a real coming out. I met you and was out. So can I have the U-Haul story?
Okay,
Okay.
I'll give it to you in a sec. Or do you want to start the U-Haul now and then I'll finish?
Okay.
Yeah, we can just continue the
Cont-
timeline.
Great. So I thought I was straight. I had been curious in college a little bit, but I never explored intimately. I'll spare my story as much as possible, but I got drunk in Jamaica on a cruise ship, kissed a girl, and like liked it. Get it? Okay. And when I got off the ship, my sister messaged me one day and was like, yo, like, have you seen this hot thirst trap lesbian on TikTok from our hometown? I feel like if you were to date a woman, she would be your type. And I found Rachel at that time. And I didn't have TikTok, but I used it to like see Rachel's video. And I was like, yeah, she's hot. Like I had never been exposed to hot lesbians, but wow. Wow. TikTok really can turn people. I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly believe it. So, anyways, I said to my sister, yeah, I definitely think that there is an attraction there. But again, same as you, I didn't know what that felt like because being with a woman and the attraction that I felt, having been with men previously, did not feel like the way that I felt with you because it wasn't primal. It was instinctual. It was honest. It was authentic. Like there weren't the same barriers with
Yeah.
men as I had with you as Rachel. And so I reached out to Rachel on Instagram and I asked her about her birth chart that she had in her bio. I didn't even know what flirting was with a woman. I didn't even know if this was going to go anywhere. I just thought, we live in the same town. I think she's beautiful, but I don't know if there's like an energetic response
Mhm.
because I'd never actually explored that. And Rachel had hundreds of messages from women in her DMs at the time. It's also so weird, like referring to Rachel
Yeah.
with the pronouns. Like I always get that because you're Hayden and you're
Yes.
he, but I think in my head, she, he, like I get confused
Yeah,
with that
past
still.
tense, you can
It's
say
weird,
she.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, she responded having hundreds of messages from women, and we had a first hang. And Hayden thought that I was straight, and I didn't know I was queer at all, actually. And I'll never forget, we were eating hummus, and so sexy story. And like our legs like brushed each other, and that was the first time that we were like, oh,
There's something
there's
there.
something there.
Yeah.
And that was like our first date. We didn't kiss, there was no intimacy, we hugged. And I remember this moment because it was a foundational moment for me anyway. You had told me that there were some women that you had dated when you blew up on social media that were using you for your presence.
Mhm.
And I had told you, like, I have no desire to use you at all in any way for your social media presence. I think you're awesome. And we took a photo, two photos actually. And you left, and then you posted me on your social media. And I was like, that is a really big deal because you had just gone through a breakup.
Yeah.
There were all these other lesbians that were kind of hoping that you were now available. And now you're with some random straight girl in a photo. And that was really, in some ways, like my kind of coming out because then soon after I made a photo being like, on social media, being like, hey, love who you love. And I was very thankful that my parents were like, yeah, that tracks. Like, good for you. Don't care.
Mhm.
And we had our second date. We had a sleepover. And next thing you know, we moved across the coast of Canada together, apparently known as U-Haul lesbians, because like I said, everything was
Met
new for me.
twice and
Met
moved in.
twice and U-Hauled to Vancouver. And I had an apartment there. Rachel brought a hockey bag of stuff just because she was traveling at the time. And she never left. And now we're here getting married. So that's kind of my story into it. I feel like I met you
Yeah.
and my entire world changed because you were the first person that ever showed me what authentic love was, but also just like transcendent love,
Mhm.
which is why I think this topic about is the LGBTQ plus community New Earth so valuable and so important because some of our closest friends are queer
Mhm.
and some of our greatest enemies are also queer sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, so now walk me through, you and I are together,
Yeah.
your awakening happens.
Yeah. So I guess kind of in that story as well of Victoria and I meeting, after that sleepover, I was actually spending some time in Alberta. And for a month or so, we were messaging and FaceTiming back and forth every day. And kind of one of the first things Victoria said to me, which was like a non negotiable, was you need to start meditating. And I was like, I can't meditate. I have like the typical ADHD. I can't sit still. I can't shut off my brain. All of those kind of excuses and things that people say when you tell them to meditate. And I gave it a try, and I was open and willing to also see this version of Victoria when she was coming to me when she had her spiritual awakening before we met.
Yeah.
And I always had curiosity and openness and this like sense that I knew something was bigger and also just like this connection with the stars, just kind of dabbling into a little bit of astrology. And again, this is like 2020, so completely different than now when it's more talked about and known. But I started to meditate, and then when we moved across the coast together, I needed to do some work on myself, and so did Victoria. Both of us had our own
Yeah.
simultaneous kind of growth that we needed to do within ourselves in relationship as well for moving through some past patterns, yeah, belief stories around the past relationships that we had and
Yeah.
kind of which shaped us to understand and know what love was. I had more of a codependent, you had more
Yeah,
of
avoidant. for sure.
avoidant, and during that time, that's when I got my like Reiki energy healing certificate. I got my breath work certificate to be
Yeah.
able to do that. I started to do more somatic healing. I started to get all of these modalities really just to understand myself better, but
Right.
also to be able to help others along that journey. And the more that, like an onion, kind of pull back each layer is when I started to see more of myself.
Yeah.
And remember a key point was when I did a collaboration with a hair removal company
Oh, yeah.
that I had like I don't even know what you call
Mhm.
it, not even like a hair phobia, but just like I hated body hair. Absolutely, like did
Yes.
not want any hair on my body. I used to shave everything. So this company reached out, was like, "Hey, well, let's do this collaboration, and we can just laser off all of your hair, every like armpits." Like then they said my face, and that was the
Forgot about
thing
that bit.
that like triggered this like
Yeah.
deep part in me that I must have suppressed so long ago. Was like, I don't know why I feel sad if they were to laser my face. At the time, I didn't have like barely any kind of peach fuzz as a woman. Like
Yeah.
compared to you with your Italian genetics, you've
Did you
said,
just hear that? He just roasted me in front of millions of people.
I'm sorry,
So like your
but
mustache,
I was
like
just
it's
saying
all like that.
that wasn't like an insecurity of mine or something that
It's mine.
I know.
Now
That's why I
everybody
was.
knows about
Sorry.
that.
But it was just voicing that I
Yeah.
was not
Yeah.
insecure, nor did I focus on that. So it shouldn't have been a big
Yes.
deal,
Yes.
is kind of the point that I'm getting at. But for some reason, that invoked this feeling that questioned, well, what if I want a beard one day?
Yeah.
And I brought this up to you. And I also remember distinctly your answer to be like, that is not like a normal, like, woman thought. Like,
Yeah.
most women do not think if I were to laser the peach fuzz off my face, like it would take away from having a beard. So that really made me question what other thoughts have I had that I just had presumed that
Yeah.
were normal
Yeah.
and that most women had them. One also being I never really liked my breasts. I just never was connected to them. They just didn't really feel like a part of me.
Mhm.
And like I can also remember areas as a kid that I kind of wished that I would have like breast cancer because that in my mind was the only time that I knew could be removed
Yeah.
or have them, yeah, like have a surgery. So there's kind of these memories that are coming back to I start to really think like one, where did this belief come from that I hated body hair? And started to unpack all those things that I didn't like about myself, even if it was like my breath. What made me not love that part of myself? And then again, kind of goes back to those childhood layers of either being teased for body hair or having an older brother that females usually hit puberty before males.
Yeah.
So with even him being a year older, I still hit puberty before him. And because he was a boy, he was supposed to have the armpit hair before I was.
Mm.
And then once they started to figure out, like, oh, I can start now healing that part of my inner child and embracing these parts of me that I wanted to either disown or
Yeah.
detach kind of from, and then actually started to love all of those parts of myself. And there was another three thing that kind of sticks out. One was you to say there's going to be a 360 in your life
Oh
that's going to
yeah, this
happen.
random message came through because I felt like Hayden was growing a lot, but there was this feeling, I think, in point of contention in our relationship where it was like, there's something that's not balancing
Hmm.
out. It wasn't like, well, I'm more evolved and Hayden isn't. It was just, there was this feeling of like, we're in the right union, but something isn't totally right. And I
Hmm.
don't know if it was a message if I went into the work to look into your energy or something, but there was this message that came through that was like, Hayden's going to do a 360.
Yeah, and then I had an astrologer say the same thing,
Yep.
and then there was someone
Shedding your skin or something, wasn't it?
no said wiping away the mirror and seeing your true
Oh,
self.
yeah.
And that kind of analogy like stuck that one day. It wasn't actually me wiping away the steam from a mirror, but kind of that realization when I looked at myself and I saw through the layers of the physical body.
Yeah.
I saw more than just this physical vessel. And that really made me curious to be like, what is underneath all of this? What what is our soul? What is energy? What else is out there? Where do we come from? What is reincarnation? What is past lives? And really
Yeah.
started to dive deeper into understanding, why am I here? What is my mission?
Hmm.
And who am I? And once I started to ask myself those questions, everything else made sense. It was like, oh, I get it
Yeah.
now. I I was a male in most of my past lives, which make personally me as a soul more comfortable as a man. Was that an indication that I wasn't supposed to transition, or I was? Like, really started to ask myself, like, with past lives, and especially right now with the veil being so thin and new star seeds coming into this world, and they say that they're a boy because of a past life they're not lying, and they have all of these memories and experiences and feelings around that. But is that supposed to be in this life?
Right.
And I really question that now with that knowing of spirituality, soul, like all of those other soul contracts and karma. What was I here to do in this mission?
Hmm.
And I believe that for the first 25 years of my life living as a female and being a biological woman, I needed to come into this world as a biological woman to learn the lessons for my soul growth, but also the embodiment of more of the feminine aspects that I could
Yep.
never do in any of my previous lifetimes as a male. And during those 25 years, I was able to, I guess if you say, kind of like complete that mission and being
Mm.
able to learn and experience those things to then, once I awaken to this part also with where society is right now, to be able to support that transition, is now
Yeah.
blending both that masculine and feminine energy, but also the essence within me to become more balanced to continue my mission as a physical, like, male in society.
Yes. I like almost cried towards the end of your message because I feel like these are some of the truths that I have been so privy to have access to in our union. And one of the biggest things that you and I have talked about on multiple accounts has been, what is the home to have these kinds of conversations?
Hmm.
And the truth is, when it comes to Hayden's transition, it comes to my experience of it, when it comes to our perspectives on it, it really requires us to either go all in or to simply not talk about it at all. Because even in this podcast, you're taking the context that Hayden is giving you. You don't know everything. We're trying to give you the most amount of context as possible so you can discern what is true for you, what is true for your children, what is true for the world, the systems at large. And for us, I think we ultimately decided that it just what like the way the world is right now about trans people on
Yeah.
the whole, a lot of people think that we're regressing. And I agree in a lot of ways that there's this regression, but there's also a lot of progression.
Hmm.
And for us, it just feels really good to be able to talk about this in a safe space, but in a
Hmm.
space where like we decide the context.
And like the narrative and things for what,
Totally. Like you get to decide the narrative here, which
yeah.
is the only narrative that matters because I've never seen another trans person, very few I'll say, actually speak about their experience within the blend of spirituality.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, but a lot of spiritual people don't know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
They're white people who have an opinion about somebody's lived experience that they haven't lived, or they're, even then there's like multicultural people who are talking about something that they should be able to understand about discrimination and segregation and separation and just flat out like judgment of someone else's experience. And even then we don't really see that in the wave of spirituality meeting queerness.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes from misunderstanding.
Totally.
And I also like want to say there's every or a bad apple in every community, whether that's spirituality, and we can think that we are ascending with a collective, and we are, but there's also that part where we're also descending because we don't need to actually rise higher. We need to descend back into the body and become
Yep.
more embodied. But there's also all those ones within the interference and the darkness that you deal with. But again, that's any community.
Yeah.
And right now, we're really hyper focused on specifically either transgender folks within the
Yep.
LGBTQ community, but also like I see it as this split. And that split is people either transition from love or they transition from hate.
Hmm.
And the way that I kind of see both those is I transition out of love for myself. Because I loved myself is actually why I transitioned, because I wanted to be more comfortable and I already loved who I was inside. I already thought I was whole
Yep.
and I didn't need anything outside of me.
Can I be a Karen right now and say, but you're never going to be a biological male? What would you say to me if I was a Karen and I was sitting here right now and she stopped you in the middle of this episode and said that to you? What would your response be?
What would that difference be? Like
Well, you would
what would that
have a
change?
penis.
Okay, so then what would that change within either her or anyone else besides the person that's actually sitting here, which is my soon to be wife? That would only
Totally.
affect us.
Yeah, but my
And
children,
oh yeah.
my children is coming back from school and telling me that they want to be a cat.
Well, also that has nothing to do with trans folks. Like that's where we kind of categorize them all into this like group thinking that that is the same, but it's not. Same with
Yeah.
drag queens are not the same as trans women or trans men.
Yes.
Like that's a completely different category that like drag queens are actually dressing up and for like a performance and putting on that and then taking it off at the end of the night.
Yes.
Being transgender is not a performance. It's not trying to be someone else. It's not trying to
Hmm.
like put on this show. It's just in my perspective becoming more of who I already was and just this expression of me. And I don't even really like to label myself or identify like as a trans man because I just see myself as a soul and that soul's name is Hayden. So for
Mm.
me, that's what I claim inside myself. And if you want to perceive me as a man, okay. If you want to perceive me as a woman, good for you. If you want to just perceive me as an energy light being that is existing on this earth, that is trying to grow into my best self while also helping others, okay. Now, like, it doesn't matter to me,
Yes.
at least, what type of label, because I've also done that inner work on myself that anything that really triggered me before, if you were to call me Rachel, if you were to call me she, if you were to say anything, I have no visceral, like, body reaction
Yes.
because I don't take that to heart anymore because I know who I am and I'm grounded and embodied in it. And a lot of the times, again, comes back to that misunderstanding,
Yep.
that projection from themselves that they either don't have the sense of freedom
Yeah.
or like connected to their true self or their truest expression or something inside them
Yeah.
feels suppressed that they need to share on who they think I should be
Yes.
when they're not even being who they think they are.
Totally. Totally. It's like take the log out of your eye before you like try to take the speck out of mine. And that's a big topic that I want to speak about, kind of about the whole LGBTQ plus community, because in my stance here, having really only come out because of you,
Hmm.
I don't know if there was a timeline for me where I would have been with another woman or another trans person. I believe that my love with you is the reason why all of this other evolution has happened. Like I've always said this, like I don't care who Hayden is. Like we met and I was channeling aliens. So it's like
Hmm.
if we really cared that much about what the other person did, like we wouldn't
Yeah.
be here today. And that is a true representation of our love. But I I hesitate to put myself as a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I
Hmm.
don't resonate with it because I feel such deep hypocrisy in the same way that I don't want to associate myself as a religion, even though I love God. So I just want to kind of go a
Yeah.
little bit deeper into this where it's like, because our stance here is the LGBTQ plus community, New Earth. If we put T in there, which obviously it is,
Yes.
this would be the whole conversation. But I want to talk about the whole community at large because
Yeah.
the truth is the greatest light workers I know are gay.
Hmm.
There's something to be said about Elizabeth April, Matthias DeStefanos, Phil Goods of the world that are gay.
Hmm.
There's something to be said about that for me.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said about the fact that if you asked a lot of them, other queer people that are spiritually forward as well, most of them hold our stance, my stance anyway.
Yeah.
that they don't necessarily want to present in the community. So I'd love to hear kind of like your stances having walked through the
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus community.
I think also I'm gonna kind of blend this together that I never talked about on the people who transition from that other side, which
Of
is that
hate.
hate.
Yes.
And if I were to touch on that, it will kind of come together with this conversation that those who also decide to transition because they hate themselves, they hate their body, they want to get rid of or become kind of something else that they're
Yes.
not. They're seeking that power within something external to then create the state within. So they think their happiness is going to come from either getting the facial hair, starting the testosterone, having the top surgery, whatever that is, it's never going to feel enough in the end
Yep.
because they've put all that power into that thing
Yep.
that they never see themselves as whole. So it's always going to come up that they're not going to actually either appreciate once those things happen, that it's going to now focus on something else,
Yeah.
or it's just like that whole other category that you're never going to kind of meet yourself deeper until you address those
The
things,
drivers, the motivators,
for
right?
why you're choosing that, what either beliefs or traumas or things in your life has created,
That
initiated.
choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now I also kind of see that within the LGBTQ community, where it goes almost to attaching to labels. And those people also that split within the LGBTQ community, which is the ones that are also just more free in their expression, like the more spirituality perspectives and the people that we kind of just shared, but also the ones that are so attached to that box that if you were anything outside of a lesbian, for even bisexuals and the hate that they get,
True.
then like you're not the same, or you have like there's so much also hate and separation that is really that opposite of loving who you love or allowing that freedom
Totally.
to like saying that love is that binary, like, or the spectrum, and within even non-binary to allow people to go on opposite ends. There's still this like, well, if you're not at this end, then you're actually, you can't, or if you go too far right or too far left, then you can't also be non-binary, like then you have to be a trans man or a trans woman. And then that's where it gets so attached to that then they like almost like go in those like lower chakras
Yes.
of the fear, the
Yes.
separation, like the
I need to feel like I belong to something. And so I'm kind of
yes,
clinging to this identity. And then if you try to, I guess, challenge that, then it feels
yes,
like you're kind of threatening my sense of self,
yes,
right? Which is what you've done so much work to integrate, where if someone, misgenders you intentionally,
hmm,
then you're like, cool, like good for you. So the energy completely dissipates because there's no energetic charge. At
yeah,
least that's what I'm gathering from what you're
yeah,
saying, is like people in the community, from what you've seen, there's a lot of overemphasization on the attachment to the identity,
hmm,
and then the need to try to belong within that identity.
yeah,
But it's interesting because for me, it's like, you can't ask for something unless you are it, to me. It's like, don't tell me that you want me to accept you if you can't even accept me.
mm,
And like, of course, politics can play a big role in this, which we're not going to go into because we're not even have a political stance. But
yeah.
it's like, it's just, how far is the division going to go while you're asking for something from us?
And I think just kind of that root of that, as well as those, especially within like say freedom fighters or those people who are speaking up, if that you feel is your mission and what you're here to do to
Yeah.
help initiate things forward or fight for laws or fight for rights or whatever, but it's that word fight. If you are fighting for that, it means you're going against something else, which means you think or believe that you're separate from it.
Yep.
And that I feel like is the entire whole. Once we can understand that all of us, one, are connected, we're all whole within, and we're also all kind of the same with different fractals of that, we can appreciate each other for that uniqueness and not try to think that I need to fight my belief with your belief or your expression with my expression, or who I think you should be or who you are,
Yeah.
and just now have that compassion and openness and just acceptance, like that
Yeah.
deep acceptance that if your presence, your embodiment, your expression of you doesn't affect me,
Yeah.
and if it does, then it's bringing up something in me about myself.
Yeah.
And again, nothing to do with you. So once we can kind of come to this blend,
Yeah.
whether it's in the LGBTQ community, within spirituality, or within any religion, like this again kind of goes hand in hand within any religion when you start to talk about God. And now it's like if a Christian is trying to fight you on something because they believe, and instead it's just like, can I just know that I'm embodied in my truth?
Yeah.
And I'm so grounded that no matter what you say or what you believe, I can have compassion and acceptance for that being your story, for that being your perspective and your
Yeah.
experience. And that has nothing to do with
But I
me.
think the key here is that when we're talking about Christianity, just this example here, if my truth contradicts what they know to be true, then their foundation has to crumble in order to be able to accept my truth, which then means that their foundation wasn't solid in the first place. So then I think the conversation comes back to, well, then do you even know who God is at all?
Mm,
Because if you knew who God was and you felt God truly in your body, then you would know that what you were doing is right.
mm,
And you'd be able to accept that somebody else's path believes that they are right.
yeah,
So then the conversation really becomes, oh, so you don't even know who you are and you don't
mm,
even know who God is. Otherwise, if you had known who you were and who God was, if my truth about being very openly gay and very deeply in love with God and Jesus threatened you, it wouldn't threaten your identity or at least the falsification of the
yeah,
identity that you've created, this perception of this identity that you've created that I just popped
yeah,
in that moment.
yeah.
So I think that's a piece there.
And I think that whole conversation about is the LGBTQ community that's part of like initiating New Earth, I wouldn't label it as that, but this entire conversation around that embodiment, that
Yeah.
acceptance, that like truly just being so comfortable in your truth, whatever belief that
Yeah.
is, that's a lot of times what people in that community hold because they've already looked at all those parts of themselves
Yeah.
to know who they are, what their sexuality, what their identity, all those things.
So
They've done
true.
that work to go against maybe the norm or
Yes.
feel rejected or feel that abandonment that they've been able to transcend to be like, hey, I've went through this and I know what it feels like to not be accepted, loved, or in
Yes.
my truest form. So now I'm going to carry almost that code that moves forward to now being like, I don't care if you're a Christian or this or that, not
Yes.
even in gender or sexuality, but just as a whole, as a person, that now I can just see Victoria.
Yeah.
And once you can get to that point, I feel like that is who is initiating this next kind of
Yeah.
phase of consciousness and like what this kind of new earth frequency is just that love, wholeness, and acceptance.
I completely resonate with that. And I agree. I think that the beauty of the queers of the world that are also on this authentic, self embodied journey of owning who they are, it is true that a lot of us had to be shunned by our families,
Yeah.
cut out from communities, no longer belonging. Like that is a very real imprint that we carry. And I believe where we're headed in the world is where we have direct contact with different extraterrestrial life forms. And
Hmm.
I think the queers hold this code of, can I accept who I am, even if it threatens others, even if it is revolutionary in nature, even if it goes against something, I'm going to claim that that is my truth no matter what. And if that can radiate out instead of
Yeah.
fighting out, then I 100% believe that the queers of the world right now that are actually on the personal development journey alongside of like the sexual embodiment journey,
Hmm.
I think they're absolutely preparing us to be able to step into another iteration where we're actually connected more with who we truly are, not just as an earth, as a human being species, but also other species and other life forms. And I've said that to you before, that
Yeah.
I think your transition and how you hold it in wholeness and such embodiment, I think it's preparing us for being able to see different humanoid and non-humanoid beings
Mm.
walking around earth as our interdimensional sight grows. Like I really believe that
Yeah.
you hold this like unbelievable integration that I mean it.
I know.
You hold this unbelievable integration, and you hold it with such grace and power and softness and just unbelievable compassion that how can you not look at this and think this is new earth? It's like how? Like there
Yeah.
to me, there's nothing that anybody could ever say that wouldn't dissipate because of the way that you hold yourself in wholeness. And I really hope that, just from the trans perspective, like I hope that those that are listening that maybe have or have had different agitations, resistances about what's happening on a system level, which maybe I want to get into just a little bit briefly here,
Yeah.
are already starting to maybe release a little bit of that charge. So is it cool if I kind of pivot a little bit?
Yeah, I was just gonna say no, just based on you kind of talking about extraterrestrials and just kind of stuff for where we're also headed. I feel like as a society as a whole, it's also gonna kind of end up, in my own kind of opinion, more androgynous, and you're already kind of
Yeah.
seeing that shift. And again, if I could say or give any advice, it's just really to remove those labels, because that labeling something into a category or thing is creating that box, and then now you feel like you can't step outside that.
Yeah.
And those who actually have the courage to just like be their whole complete self, whether you are a cis woman in a heterosexual relationship, that doesn't matter. If you can wake up and put on an outfit that you feel great and have a
Yes.
haircut that like is your soul expression, and walk that embodiment of that authentic self without having to like, again, kind of like
Yeah.
that fight or say like I am a woman and I am like that, then that just like opens up your heart and allows so much more freedom that we can all just be ourselves
Yes.
and have, like, whether you are straight or not, putting that label doesn't matter. If you fall in love with a soul that as an expression of Victoria,
Yes.
then your two hearts are meeting to create that balance
Yes.
in harmony. And that's also with the polarity that we also kind of want to talk about. I've experienced being a woman in society as well as being a man in society. Everyone, no matter what gender, has both masculine and feminine energy within them. And to find that balance within, like, you're a cis woman, that you hold a lot of masculine
Yeah.
energy, and you've had to find also where that balance
Yeah.
is within you, and me as your partner also going
Yeah.
and being that opposite polarity to then help you as
Balance.
well and
Yeah.
be in that balance. And I think that's something that I've had to learn, especially hormone wise, emotional wise,
Mm.
to come into that balance within me. But that's regardless of anyone who's transgender or hormones, like, that's something that everyone needs to work on within themselves. And
Yeah.
I think that balance of that polarity and that expression and energy within them is going to allow more of this androgynous
Yes. Like
energy.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's no need to make it something more to try to fight to belong because it just is.
And that's what opens up that freedom. And I
Yes.
feel like that freedom and that peace, and yeah, that is the best kind of that love for your,
That is new earth, babe.
yeah,
Yeah.
authentic self, is those people that you probably look at on social media for why you like them is probably because they hold that key, that code of
Yes.
that freedom, peace, and authenticity that we're kind of now moving
Moving
into.
into.
And that's regardless of the LGBT community.
Yeah.
That's just an embodiment.
I want to break down a little bit more about the systems and where the systems are potentially hijacking what some of the newer star seeds are wanting to come in to express. I know you talked a lot about how you've had a lot of past lives in male form, and like there's nuance there about, yes, when you came into your truth as being transgender, but you also had a history clearly of like different insights about clearly being more wanting to express more in a male embodiment. But inside of the systems, particularly the education system, there's a lot more weaving in the conversations about being queer or trans or drag. And
Hmm.
so in the conversation of is the LGBTQ plus community new earth and more conversations being had in the systems on the whole, Where do these two play in?
I think a little bit of that kind of just went what we just shared about removing the attachments to labels and also coming into more of this androgynous, like full expression and authentic self. It's one part of it. I also don't see any kind of relation between what's happening in the schools right now with also like New Earth. Like, I
Yes.
don't think there's any correlation there. I think that's just where we're kind of moving as a society for more of that acceptance
Okay.
and also more just education to understand things to make it easier on the whole for, say, people like me who want to be accepted in society. You need to know what that is to be able
Totally.
to understand or accept it. So that's one part of it. But I think also right now, there's this shift that's happening. I don't even know how I kind of like want to say around, but if I got down to like what would be that bottom kind of layer would be support, discernment,
Mm,
and also regardless what is happening in the school systems, there's so much more
yeah.
than like that we could go into about creating the worker instead of the entrepreneur
Oh,
even.
yeah.
um, what is flawed within the system
Yeah.
that's not just within gender or sexuality. But I think at that age, there still has to be some knowing about it so that there's some acceptance around it
Yes.
to just treat their fellow classmates respectfully
Yep.
and with acceptance and love instead of all of the hate and bullying that can be shared
Yeah.
within that if some kid doesn't look like everyone else. Same.
So you think there has to be some sort of level of normalization of it, but not
Yes.
necessarily like infiltration of it?
Yes, but also even the word infiltration, like I can't convince you to be trans because you're not trans. If I were to say, like, even growing up by watching all heterosexual relationships, that didn't make me straight before. Like, I watch men and women kissing all the time. Yes, regardless, now I am man and with a woman that makes us in a straight relationship. But I'm talking about me being the biological
Yeah,
female, being with a female. There was not any amount of things that could have been pushed on me to
totally.
share that I needed to be that. I tried
Yeah.
very hard to be that. And same with before transitioning, like I tried as best as I
Yeah.
could and also did accept and love myself like as a biological female.
Yeah.
I still do, but that doesn't make me kind of who I am.
So to
So
your
there's that point
yeah.
where it's like, yes, kids at those developmental ages can't comprehend or understand even just based on even like gender, sexuality, and just anything really at that age to know of. They just want to play and be kids and have
Yeah.
that innocence within them. So allowing that by still having like sharing so that they understand maybe from like a surface level
Mhm.
that whether this looks like a boy or a girl, you can still be friends with them, or whether
Right.
this kid is white or
Don't you
darker
think that's a parent's
skin.
job though? Like that's the point for me. It's kind of like that's fine, but like it's the parent's job to teach their child, "Hey, be nice to them. Like they're different than us, but they're still the
Yeah.
same as us." Like I feel like that's the parent's job, not necessarily like an outdated system that is, kind of feeding information to children. So are you saying in this moment that you think that it should be inside of the education system to talk about queer, trans,
I
gay folk?
I think if we're gonna talk about history and everything else, which doesn't really change much either for what we need to know, but I think it should be a part of the curriculum, but not hyper fixated on it. It should be normalized, not something different.
Yes. Okay.
So that's
Got it.
kind of the point that it needs to just be talking like everything else, like a normal conversation,
Right.
and not here's kind of everything that we're wanting to teach. And then now we have to just focus on this other aspect of things
Right.
to make that different or think that's like so unique for someone to be this. Like,
Mm,
again, like with the the color of people's skin and how that can affect even different children at that age. They don't know. They
Yeah.
want to hang out with their friend no matter what religion, what culture, what they look like.
Right.
So what's that difference between also that spectrum of gender? So
Right.
it's what my point here is, teaching that acceptance.
Yes.
And then also just that freedom of expression. So not condoning or like telling your child that they need to be this one thing.
Right.
Because again, I could make scenarios up around your performance career.
Yeah.
If your parents told you that you couldn't become that, couldn't be, you aren't that, anything like that, that creates more trauma
Yes.
than that freedom to just allow them to explore
Yeah.
and have like to dream in that. But there's boundaries.
Yep.
Like continuous to, I don't know if your kid is coming home and saying they want to go out by a new name, but this is where that support but also discernment comes in. Like
Right.
how can you help them understand more about themselves at that age and decipher where are those beliefs coming from? Like what is actually that root? And like where are these feelings? Like maybe they are more spiritually attuned and adept to different things. And maybe that's you needing to seek that other support
Right.
to understand more from that energetic level.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a traumatic upbringing, and like I know you did with like divorces and whatnot, like at that age, and that 0 to 7 is a lot of fundamental times
Yeah.
that maybe you saw like men always doing something, so you, as a boy you didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, maybe I want to be a woman because women to me are loving and
Yeah.
caring and something like that represents something that I would like to be. Yeah, I think like it's such a complex question, and I really think it comes down to the parents helping their kids
Mm.
understand, but also allowing them to be kids, allowing them to dream. And like when we talk about different things like Santa Claus, whether he's
Right.
real or not, which I know you have a lot of strong opinions about, but not shutting them off to certain things that they can't allow their minds to develop and explore.
So if I could boil this down into like 140 characters, you're saying you think it's beneficial to normalize conversations about sexuality and identity inside of school, not telling them to change, but telling them this is a part of society. People are these things, and that's just information. And furthermore, it's really up to the parents' responsibility to be on their spiritual journey,
Yeah.
have a personal development journey, have a spiritual journey, right? Do their work so that they're not saying, my child's not going to be like this, right? And kind of projecting all of that onto the child, allowing the child to be themselves because they allow themselves to be themselves.
Yeah.
Therefore, they can parent their child in a way where support and discernment are at the forefront of focus. So if their child is having past life recollection, then that there's support for that. If their child saw their best friend who said, I want to be a girl, then they thought that that was cool and they wanted to fit in, then there's discernment for that. But either way, the conversation that I think I'm gathering from you here is the support and the discernment comes from the parent and the parent's connection to their own spirituality and their spiritual journey.
And yeah, their connection to like just self
Themselves.
as well, because you're wanting to teach your kid that self-love, that acceptance
Right.
also. So it's like no matter what, if you can continue to give your child love and that support and acceptance, then either they're not going to act out or rebel or try to like, if you give them that understanding as well, again, to we don't have kids, so I don't actually know what they're sharing in school. So
Yeah.
that's where like I don't actually know what they're talking about, but if they're talking about just like a general basic, even just anatomy of boy girl, like allowing that to be a spectrum and
Right.
just saying like blue also doesn't mean boy and pink also doesn't mean
Right.
girl, like those just kind of small fundamental things,
Yeah.
allowing more of that spectrum and give to that if they're going to teach something about boys and girls, there needs to be some other.
Okay. Well, I think that that's fair enough. So,
Yeah.
on that note, my final question for you, and then I'm going to leave it with our audience here
Yeah.
because ultimately they get to decide for themselves, is the LGBTQ plus community New Earth? In one sentence.
First I mean, it also, if no one has caught on so far, what would you define as New Earth?
I would define New Earth as the evolution that we are navigating as a species, where we are harmonizing higher frequencies and remembering who we are as souls on this planet. In layman's terms.
Let me Okay, I would say that the LGBTQ plus community challenges that in order to support the growth and to be able to become that,
Hmm.
either on either side. If you're not a part of the LGBT community, it challenges, again, either your discernment, your own truths, your own embodiment, to see either to accept that within
Right.
them, to find that also acceptance within yourself
Hmm.
for anything that you are not accepting. But also, if you are a part of that LGBTQ community, like becoming,
Right.
yeah, just, I mean,
Okay. Well, my answer on this is yes. I do think that the LGBTQ plus community is a part of New Earth because I believe that they are creating the right resistance to be able to evolve ourselves into deeper acceptance.
yeah,
And I think that's really the main takeaway here is in any community, there is any type of person,
yeah,
both positive and negative, doesn't matter. And I
yeah.
think that's ultimately the big thing that we were taking away here today
Well,
as well.
we live on a 3D planet that's always going to have polarity as one of the laws.
Yes.
So no matter what, there's going to be masculine and feminine. There's going to be light and dark. There's going to be yin,
Yes.
yang, like black, white. All of those things, we're always going to have polarity, and it's how we can find that wholeness within that and that balance between both.
Well, thank you, Hayden LAINE Tricker, for being a part of the Spiritual Debate podcast. We're going to leave this question with you. Do you believe that the LGBTQ plus community is New Earth? Let us know.